What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today we're gonna take our first look at Wrath of the Lich King. We're assuming that Wrath of the Lich King is coming. Now, Wrath of the Lich King, that's a nostalgic time for me. That's the first time I started really getting into gold making. So I'm gonna give you some first-hand advice. We're gonna take a quick overview, a look of how professions, what kind of gold making methods are going to work based on my experience from Classic and TBC Classic, my experience from the original Wrath, and my experience from, 15 plus years of gold making now. So let's dive in. So, first things first, the basics in Wrath is going to be the same as it is in TBC Classic, as it's been in Classic. The same general techniques are going to work. What does that mean? It means material flipping is still going to be a great way to get started in gold making. It's going to be fantastic both with the new materials and with the old materials, because once again we have professions with a max level benefit. So people will always need to level their professions up to Wrath level, which means leveling through all of the classic recipes and all of the skill points through TBC. So materials are going to remain relevant for a long time. BOE flipping can work. Hard to know how good it's going to be. It depends a little bit on the items. I haven't done a deep dive on those yet. And utilizing stack sizing, selling your items in the correct stack size to get more money for them is also going to work really well. Like when you have these greater frost protection potions, you don't want to sell them in stacks of 1, you want to sell them in stacks of 5 or 4 or whatever. You can check out my video on that concept in the video description. It's a great technique to getting 20, 30, 40% more per item by using stack sizing actively. So it's overall going to work very similarly to TBC. You can do most of the same types of activities to make gold. Of course, we're going to prioritize the new recipes, the new items, and new materials, because most of the gold is always in max level gameplay. End game items, anything that's useful for power increasing, whether it's consumable, gear, or whatever. Yeah. So next up, we're going to do a quick overview of most of the professions. We're not going to look into all of the recipes in detail and exactly how you can make gold. We're going to do a quick overview of what types of items in general you can make with the various professions, and what you want to focus on, which recipes, which items, if there are any particular ones, and a little bit about how you can combine them and what professions I would definitely suggest having. You may want to spend some time now or until Wrath launches to level up some alts, so you have access to a full set of crafting alts at level 70. There's going to be some professions where you can get a lot of value out of a level 70 crafting alt, and there's going to be some professions where you need to level them up further to get access to max level reputations. But both of those are things you can prepare right now. So first we have alchemy. And alchemy is just never going to be irrelevant. It's just always going to be relevant and good. If we're looking at the list here, it's going to be, the same category of items you're going to be making money with. You can transmute the new meta gems, you can transmute epic gems eventually, you can transmute titanium bars, and then you can craft potions, elixirs, and flasks. They're all going to be useful. Generally speaking, you're probably going to want to have either the elixir or the potion mastery. Those are the two best ones because they are uncapped. You can craft as many flasks as you want, whereas the transmutes are generally on a daily cooldown, which means that you only get the benefit once a day, and on generally speaking a smaller volume of gold. So if you have multiple characters, this is definitely a profession where it can make sense to have a lot of crafters, having one each for flasks and potions, and then having multiple transmute spec alchemists for daily cooldowns. If you're someone who likes leveling, that's definitely something you can set up. But in general, pick either elixir or potion and focus on crafting those and getting the relevant recipes. Now, before we head into the meat of the video, I just like to let you know that I do have a Patreon page where you can support the channel, and some of the benefits include getting 7 days of early access to all of my video guides, including this one, and my full TSM setups for currently TBC, Classic Seasons of Mastery, and Retail World of Warcraft, and obviously when Wrath of the Lich King Classic comes around, we're going to have it for those as well. Now, let's get into the actual video content. We have the armor professions, and I'm cutting these all under one heading of just armor professions, and by those I mean blacksmithing, leatherworking, and tailoring. There's some small differences between them, but the general gist of it is that you're crafting various forms of gear. Some of it is rare, some of it's going to be green quality, and there's going to be some epic quality items that even make their way into the pre-raid best in slot sets, such as the spiked or tempered titan steel set from blacksmithing. I don't have the full setup. I haven't gone in depth on all of the recipes, so I'm not going to tell you exactly which recipes are the most important ones to go for yet. But in general, all of these professions fill a role in early game gearing and alt gearing in particular, and they're all profitable. Based on that. I'm not going to tell you which one is the absolute best ones or which one is the absolute worst one. Blacksmithing has weapons going for it. Leather is covering 2 different armor types. And tailoring has bags and some other goodies on the side of the cloth gear, as well as multiple different cloth types and covering some very popular roles in general. So there's a reason to pick all of them, and if you can get them all going, then that's going to be a huge advantage. If not, then prioritize whatever is going to give you the most benefit. Next up, we have Enchanting, and Enchanting is seeing some incredibly important changes in Wrath. And what is that? That is the introduction of Enchanting Volumes. So you can now finally trade enchants. I believe you can also sell these on the auction house, although I haven't absolutely confirmed this. But that's going to mean that enchanting is now finally a profession that you can engage in without sitting in trade chat all day. So this is going to be quite fantastic for those of us who like that form of enchanting. Hard to say exactly where the price point is going to be on the items or on the enchants, but in general I expect this to be very, very good, and we might see it be really good, or we might see it be overcrowded. I do believe enchanting is one of the stronger PvE professions, but I'm not 100% certain on that. So we might see a lot of people having enchanting. There's definitely been a lot of enchanters in TBC because it has been one of the best professions for raiders and PvE players in TBC Classic. Which means that we might see a lot of competition, or we might see a lot of people shy away if some of the enchants are too expensive. Generally speaking, enchants in both Classic and TBC Classic are quite expensive in material costs. So it'll be interesting to see, but I'm looking forward to actually being able to engage in this market, because I don't have the time to sit in trade chat, so I've never even considered enchanting during Classic or TBC Classic. So then we have engineering. And engineering is perhaps not the most exciting profession in general in Wrath. It doesn't have too much that you can trade, but it does have some very notable recipes. We don't have them up on screen here. You can craft some arrows and bullets, which are going to be useful for hunters. They might be paying some good money for that. I know I made a lot of money of crafting thorium shells and thorium arrows in Classic. Then there's a couple of BOE guns that can also potentially be part of pre-raid bis or initial gearing, but the most important ones are these 2 right here. The luxury mounts, the first crafted luxury mounts, the Mechano Hog and the Mechgineer's Chopper, depending on what faction you are. Getting these recipes, I think you can hopefully have a lot of fun. They're quite expensive, so you might not have that many people be able to purchase these. But these have been a gold making staple in retail WoW for many expansions. You need to be exalted with I don't remember the name of the reputation, but the main reputation, I believe, for Alliance or for Horde, the overarching one. So it's going to take a little while to get this recipe. You might be able to make some money if you're the first one. Since it is so expensive, I do expect the primary method of selling this will be through trade chat and through specifically crafting it for someone. I don't see this selling much on the auction house, at least not initially. But that does depend on inflation in TBC or in Wrath. I mean, how strong is that actually going to be or not? Now we come to perhaps the most exciting of all. Inscription, the new king in town, the new profession. And of course, the main thing we care about here are the glyphs. Major glyphs in particular. If you're unfamiliar with glyphs, they are a consumable item that you add to your glyph page. And if you want to swap out your glyphs, you have to buy the new glyph that you want to swap in, and it destroys the old one. And glyphs give various very powerful effects, like this one that increases the damage dealt by Frostfire Bolt by 2% and its critical strike chance by 2%. Obviously, this is really, really good. And everyone's going to want to have a full set of glyphs, both minor and major. And they have to swap them out every time they want to respec, if they want to change to PvE spec or dual spec. I don't remember exactly how it worked with dual spec, whether you have 2 different glyph pages or if you just have one glyph page and have to swap them out. But either way, anyone who played and focused on gold making back in Wrath will know that Inscription was an absolute king of gold making. I mean, this was one of the reasons why add-ons like Trade Skill Master even got popular, because people needed something to post all of these different items. How are you going to do that? Well, we were using an auction add-on called Quick Auctions back in the day to post glyphs. It was extremely competitive because there's no deposit cost. It was also extremely profitable. So it will be interesting to see if that's how it turns out again. But we called it Glyphmas back in the day, and I'm expecting very big things from Inscription. I will absolutely be focusing on getting a scribe going as soon as possible, because there's just a ton of valuable items here. And since they're power increasing, they're not just cosmetics, they are power increasing items. They are gonna move off the shelf at an incredible pace. And if you're considering gold making in Wrath, then you should be going into Inscription. Absolutely. If you don't have an alt prepped with a free profession slot that you're gonna level relatively early on, if you're gonna focus on gold making, then you should do that. You should get an alt specifically ready to go for Inscription. Then we also have jewel crafting, and jewel crafting is gonna be a strong gold making profession. Gems are still good. Prospecting is probably still gonna be good because it's time consuming. Prospecting has almost always been profitable. With perhaps the current expansion of retail will have a slight deviation from that, but it's going to be. Buying large amounts of ore, turning them into gems is going to be great, and you want to cut those gems, get the right recipes. Meta gems, once again. And one cool thing, in addition, at least this was the case back in the day, I can't guarantee that it's going to work in Wrath Classic, but the prospecting shuffle was really, really good in Wrath. Because of these recipes right here, the Chalcedony Amulet, the Citrine Necklace, the Sunrock Ring, and Bloodstone Band. These took 1 of the uncommon gems and 2 crystallized earth. So what you would do is you would prospect, you would cut all of the rare gems you got, and then the uncommon gems, you would turn them into these rings with some crystallized earth. That was usually pretty cheap. And then you would just disenchant them after that. This was a really good enchanting shuffle back in actual Wrath. Of course, I can't guarantee that prices are going to be exactly the same, so this is going to work, but this is definitely something to look out for. I did this a lot. I had a full production line, and this was one of the reasons why I got into using multiple professions to make gold with at the same time, or combining professions. And this is specifically a pretty good reason to have jewel crafting and enchanting paired up on one character, because then you can just craft the rings and then disenchant them directly. Yeah, let's take a look at some other profession combinations. So then we're going to go through my top suggestions for profession combos and how I would prioritize them. Now, there's one combo that stands out to me as probably the best one overall, based on my experience from Wrath, the original version, and that's to have Alchemy Inscription. Why you want to have both of these on the same crafter is because, well, they both require herbs, which means you can collect all your herbs on one character, craft as needed for whichever of the professions you're crafting for currently, and it's just efficient that way. You definitely want to have Elixir Mastery, or potentially Potion Mastery. I think Elixir is probably the absolute best one. But we'll have to see a little bit on how exactly the sale rates shake out. The only downside, if this is your only character, is obviously that you're only tied to the herb economy, but still, this is something that I think is going to be the absolute best combination. My next priority, second crafter I would have, is Enchanting jewel crafting. This is great for shuffling. You can turn your gems into rings and then disenchant those. And outside of that, jewel crafting, you're primarily just going to use raw ore. And enchanting, you're just going to use enchanting materials. Both of those have materials that don't really overlap with any other profession, so it doesn't really matter who you pair them with. After that, I'd pick 2 out of leatherworking, tailoring, blacksmithing, engineering. Probably you'll want to combine blacksmithing and engineering because they both use bars and metals. And then have leatherworking, tailoring, if you can. That's going to cover all professions. Now, I haven't gone in depth on reputation needs and where you unlock your recipes, so there might be some reasons to combine reputations, professions a little bit differently to get the optimal farming time. But this is more of a long term. This is going to give you all of the recipes in the game, or access to all of them potentially, and have you focus on the absolute best ones, which is alchemy and inscription. They are fantastic together. So yeah, that's a quick rundown of Wrath of the Lich King gold making. I think it's going to be very, very interesting and fun. Glyphmus, the first version of Glyphmus was absolutely amazing. I still, to this day, remember the names of the characters that I was in cancel scan wars with. Like, there are people I played with or played against back then. They were even like a talking point in my group of friends, because I had a couple of other friends that were also doing glyph reposting at the time and making gold with glyphs. And we can still joke about the people we were cancel scanning against. So yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun to dive back into. Hopefully you're looking forward to that as well. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like down below. It really helps me out, and it makes sure that you see more of this stuff. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.